My landlord has started conducting weekly unannounced inspections of my apartment, and recently he walked in on me unexpectedly while I was in my underwear, claiming he owns the place and can enter any time he pleases. For the past month, he's been inspecting my apartment almost every week, usually with minimal warning. Sometimes he sends a text late the night before or even the morning of, informing me he's stopping by. Other times, he doesn't even bother with a heads up. Yesterday was the breaking point. He showed up without any notice and let himself in with his key while I was in my underwear, making coffee in the kitchen, completely unaware someone was about to barge in. I heard the door unlock and there he was, standing in my living room like it was no big deal. I screamed, scrambled to cover myself, and told him he can't just walk in like that. I was shaken and honestly felt creeped out. His response, he just shrugged and said, "It's my building, I can come in whenever I want." He then made some flimsy excuse about needing to check the smoke alarm, which he'd already looked at the previous week. I told him I don't care if he owns the property. Barging in without proper notice isn't okay, and I'm pretty sure it's not legal. He scoffed and left only after I kept protesting. I stood there, clutching whatever I could to cover myself, feeling violated and furious. I've rented apartments for years and never dealt with a landlord like this. I always pay rent on time and keep the place in great condition, so there's no reason for him to act like I'm hiding something. These so-called inspections started about a month ago. Initially, he'd text something like, "I'll be by tomorrow to check the pipes," but it was always less than a day's notice, sometimes just a few hours. From what I know, in many places, landlords must give at least 24 hours notice for non-emergency visits. I'm pretty sure snooping doesn't count as an emergency. Yesterday's zero-notice intrusion was the final straw. I was mortified and enraged that he saw me half-dressed and thought he could just stroll in. I yelled at him to leave, emphasizing that his actions weren't legal. That's when he threw out the "my property" excuse. It blew my mind that he genuinely believes owning the building gives him free rein to invade my space. Tenants have rights to privacy and peaceful enjoyment of their home. Rent isn't just for a roof, it's for a private, harassment-free space. I didn't physically shove him out, but I was tempted. He left with an irritated attitude, like I was the one inconveniencing him. I'm posting this because I'm almost certain his actions violate landlord-tenant laws, but I want to confirm. Can landlords do random weekly inspections with less than 24 hours notice? Can they just unlock your door and walk in whenever they feel like it? I seriously doubt it. I'm shaken and angry, and I plan to research my tenant rights and possibly report this. But I'd appreciate advice on handling a landlord who ignores boundaries. I don't want to escalate unnecessarily, but I won't tolerate living like this. Any suggestions on next steps, legal info, how to confront him, etc. would be helpful. Thanks. Also, I've started double locking the door and am considering a chain lock, though I know he could still get in when I'm not home. Update 1. Thanks to everyone who responded to my original post. I took your advice and researched tenant rights. As I suspected, my landlord is absolutely breaking the law with these unannounced visits. In my state, and most others, landlords must provide reasonable notice, typically 24 hours, for non-emergency entries. Some places even specify that routine inspections should occur during normal hours, like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., not random evenings or early mornings. Landlords need a legitimate reason, like repairs or showing the unit, and proper notice, unless it's an emergency like a burst pipe or fire. What my landlord's doing, frequent, baseless inspections with little to no notice, is considered harassment by legal standards. Armed with this info, I decided to stand my ground. I sent him a text, so it's documented, explaining what I'd learned. I said I'm happy to allow valid inspections, but that he must follow the notice laws we're both subject to. I even cited the state law, thank you, internet requiring 24-hour notice, and noted that tenants are entitled to privacy. I also pointed out that weekly inspections without cause feel excessive and disrupt my peace. To clarify, I realized I slightly misspoke in my first post. It's been 5 visits over a little more than a month, but still roughly weekly. The notice was often just 10 to 12 hours or same day, rarely a full 24 hours. His response was less than pleasant. He texted back quickly, sounding hostile, saying I was being uncooperative and reminding me who owns the property. He bluntly told me if I don't like his rules, I should leave. It felt more like a bully's tantrum than a professional reply. I responded that I'm only asking for the legally required notice and reasonable privacy, not trying to be difficult. He didn't reply after that, but apparently my pushback made him double down. Over the next few days, he started showing up even more often, like he was trying to catch me slipping. One evening, around 8 p.m., I heard noises outside and saw through the peephole that he was fiddling with my door handle. He knocked, claiming he needed to check the heating system. I hadn't reported any issues with the heat. It was fine. It was clearly a pretext. I firmly told him through the door that it wasn't a convenient time and to schedule a visit per my message. He muttered it would only take a minute, but when I didn't open the door, he eventually left. It felt like a power move, like he was showing he could show up anytime. Another day, he knocked, saying he was checking for leaks. Again, no prior notice. It's like he's just dropping by to snoop. I haven't let him in unless it's properly scheduled. Each time, I calmly reiterate that we need to arrange visits per the law. He acts annoyed every time. I'm now documenting everything, dates, times, and details of each attempt in a log, plus saving all texts. Legal guides recommend keeping a paper trail for violations like this. I also spoke to a couple of neighbors to see if they've had similar issues or noticed anything. One neighbor said the landlord pulled similar stunts with a previous tenant who ended up moving out after threatening to contact a tenant union. It seems this guy has a habit of testing boundaries, especially when challenged. I've researched my options if he doesn't stop. In my city, I can file a harassment complaint with the housing authority, and there are laws against landlord retaliation. More on that later. I don't want this to turn into a full-blown battle, but I'm not going to be a pushover either. For now, I've made it clear I know my rights. I'm hoping he backs off and starts respecting my privacy like a normal landlord. We'll see. Update 2. I didn't expect to post another update so soon, but things escalated again. It's been a few days since my last post, and this morning my landlord pulled a stunt that left me furious and stunned. At 6 a.m., yes, 6 in the morning, I woke up to someone tampering with my door lock. Before I could fully process it, there was loud banging, then his voice shouting, "Emergency! Gas leak!" I barely had time to throw on a robe before he unlocked the door and stormed in, claiming there was a gas leak requiring immediate entry. I didn't smell any gas, and there were no alarms or signs of an issue. My instincts told me this was nonsense, but I was groggy and startled. I asked where this supposed leak was reported and why no other units seemed affected. He mumbled something about a neighbor reporting a gas smell somewhere in the building and said he needed to check my apartment. It didn't add up. If there's a real gas leak, you'd evacuate or call the utility company, not wander into one unit for 20 minutes. But he was already inside and I was alone and half asleep, so I told him to make it quick. He went straight to my kitchen where there was no gas smell, then poked around my bedroom and bathroom, opening closets and checking behind the shower curtain, nothing related to gas lines. I'd had enough. I grabbed my phone and started recording him as he rummaged near my bedroom dresser. I didn't hide it. I wanted him to know I was documenting this absurd inspection. When he noticed, he lost it. He stormed toward me, demanding I stop recording, saying, "You can't film me in my own building." I told him this is my home, which I pay for, and I can record for my own protection. I said I was documenting his lack of legitimate cause for entry. He got angrier, his face turning red, claiming I was violating his privacy. The irony was rich. He disregards my privacy but expects me to respect his while he's trespassing. I stood my ground, hands shaking but still filming, and said, "If this is a real emergency, you shouldn't mind being recorded." That set him off more. He yelled, "Get that phone out of my face," and briefly grabbed my arm like he might take it. I pulled back and warned that if he touched me or my phone again, I'd call the police. That made him back off. Cops are probably the last thing he wants involved. He muttered, "Fine, do what you want," and started to leave, saying, "You're making a mistake." I kept filming and asked, "So is there actually a gas leak or was this an excuse to barge in?" He shot me a nasty look, said, "Don't say I didn't warn you," and slammed the door. The whole incident is on video, except for the first few minutes before I grabbed my phone. There was no gas leak. I checked with a neighbor later. They didn't report anything, and no utility crew or gas smell was noted in the building. He clearly fabricated an emergency to invade my space at dawn. Also, 6 a.m. is far outside reasonable hours for non-emergency visits, which laws typically limit to 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is straight-up harassment, likely because I challenged him on the law. He's trying to intimidate me by showing he can show up anytime. The good news is I have video evidence, which legal guides say is key for proving landlord harassment. After calming down, I called a friend who'd had similar issues and forgot to mention earlier. They suggested the fake emergency and arm grabbing could be seen as trespassing or even attempted assault. I considered filing a police report for illegal entry, but figured it's partly a civil issue, so they might not act. Instead, I contacted a local tenants' rights group that morning, and they referred me to a lawyer specializing in landlord harassment. I have a meeting tomorrow to review my case, including texts, logs, and video. It's comforting to know I have a strong case, repeated illegal entries, retaliation, and a fake emergency. Tonight, I sent a brief email stating I consider his entry unlawful and will seek legal advice. No reply yet, as expected. I'm done dealing with him directly. My lawyer will handle it from here. Even if I move out, I won't let him get away with treating tenants like this. Wish me luck. I'll update after meeting the attorney. Update 3. It's been about a week since the 6 a.m. gas leak fiasco, and a lot has happened. I met with the tenants' rights lawyer the day after my last update, and she was fantastic, fully supportive and unsurprised by my landlord's tactics. She said she often sees cases of harassment through unwarranted entries and intimidation. She was eager to take my case and helped me send a formal letter to the landlord, via certified mail and email, demanding he stop all unannounced entries and harassment. The letter cited specific laws he's violating: breach of quiet enjoyment, failure to provide 24-hour notice, and harassment, and noted his emergency entry was baseless. My lawyer warned me that landlords like this often retaliate when confronted legally, which I'd already seen with his increased visits. Sure enough, 3 days after the letter, I found a notice slipped under my door stating my rent would increase by $500 next month. A 30% jump, completely outrageous and not allowed under my lease, which has a fixed rent for the year. The note claimed it was per lease terms, false, and said I was lucky he wasn't evicting me for being uncooperative. He put that in writing, essentially admitting to retaliating for my complaints. My lawyer was thrilled at his mistake. Retaliation like raising rent or threatening eviction after a tenant asserts their rights is illegal in most states, including mine. Statutes often presume actions within 90 to 180 days of a complaint are retaliatory, with steep penalties. His $500 increase is unenforceable and strengthens our case. My lawyer sent a response rejecting the increase and warning that further retaliation would lead to legal action. She pointed out his actions confirm harassment and retaliation. I'm trying to live normally, but it's stressful. I no longer answer the door if he shows up, per my lawyer's advice, and communicate only in writing. I also got a small security camera for my living room, facing the door, in case he tries another unannounced entry. So far, he hasn't entered again, possibly because the legal letter spooked him, but he's still trying to punish me through rent and lease threats. A few days later, he sent a letter, also dropped in my mailbox, claiming he suspected illegal activity in my apartment, justifying his inspections. He didn't specify what, likely because there's none. I'm a quiet professional who occasionally torrents a movie at most. He also mentioned a supposed bedbug issue in the building earlier this year, which he never brought up before. It's clearly a made-up excuse. His letter ended with a vague threat that if I keep creating a hostile environment, he'll take appropriate action to protect his property. My lawyer and I are ready to proceed. We're filing a lawsuit for harassment, illegal entry, breach of quiet enjoyment, and retaliation, with evidence like texts, logs, video, and his letters. In my state, tenants can seek rent abatement, distress damages, and statutory penalties, potentially worth months of rent. When we informed his side of the lawsuit, we learned he'd hired a lawyer. His attorney's letter suggested all communication go through counsel and proposed a meeting to discuss resolution before court. My lawyer and I see this as them realizing he's in trouble and possibly wanting to settle. We agreed to a without prejudice meeting to explore settling out of court, as many cases resolve this way. The lawsuit is ready to file if they don't offer something fair. I'm eager to face him in court with the video evidence, but open to settling to avoid a long battle, especially if it means compensation and a lease release to move elsewhere. I'll update after the meeting or if we go to court. Update 4 final. This is my final update, and I'm thrilled to share good news. The saga is over and my landlord won't be harassing anyone for a while. It took a few weeks, but everything's resolved better than I hoped. I waited until it was official before posting, and as of yesterday, it's done. My lawyer met with the landlord's attorney and I didn't have to attend, which was a relief. I doubt I could have stayed calm. My lawyer said the meeting was intense. The landlord showed up, despite his attorney's advice, and was defensive, claiming he suspected I was running an illegal business, justifying his inspections. When pressed for evidence, he had none, and his lawyer seemed frustrated. They'd reviewed our evidence, texts, logs, video, and his letters, and knew he'd lose in court. Ultimately, he agreed to settle out of court. He's paying me $7,000 and I'll drop the lawsuit. I was stunned at the amount, about half a year's rent. We'd asked for more, expecting negotiation, and $7,000 was the final figure. I'm thrilled with it. His lawyer likely advised settling to avoid higher court costs, fines, or damages, especially since harassment fines in some cities reach $10,000. The settlement also lets me break my lease without penalties, marked as a mutual termination, so it won't hurt my rental history. I've already found a new apartment in a professionally managed building and move in 9 days. The $7,000 covers moving costs, the deposit, and a few months' rent, easing my financial worries. At our final meeting to sign the agreement and get the check, the landlord barely looked at me, his tough guy attitude gone. He muttered about a misunderstanding while his lawyer handled everything. The agreement ensures he can't pursue claims against me and will provide a neutral reference if needed. We're done. I'm packing and excited to leave. Neighbors who knew the situation wished me well, and one said the landlord seemed upset recently, possibly after my city harassment complaint or his lawyer's scolding. I doubt he'll harass other tenants soon, but if he does, I hope they fight back. I'm celebrating with a small housewarming party at my new place, using part of the $7,000. This was stressful, but I'm proud I stood up to him. Documenting everything and knowing my rights made the difference. His side folded because of my evidence. Thanks to everyone who supported me. I'm moving on to a better home and leaving this creep behind.